Hello, everybody, and thank you very much, and welcome to this week's Dementia Researcher Salon webinar, where we discuss research, careers, and the tools that help shape them. I'm Adam Smith. I'm the Program Director for Dementia Researcher, and I'm delighted to be hosting this week's session once again, where we're going to be talking about developing and developing and presenting conference posters. So before we get going, let me set the scene. Posters are often the first public step into the research community, and whether you're a PhD student, a postdoc, or a clinician, they're not just a way to share your findings. A poster can be your platform to make connections, attract collaborations, or even planting a seed for future jobs or funding opportunities. But how do you condense data into a compelling visual story? How do you draw people in a busy conference coffee break, which is always just too short? And once they're at your poster, how do you make sure that they actually remember you? I hope in today's session, we're going to be able to answer some of those questions. And joining me today to do just that are two brilliant speakers who I'm going to bring into the screen now. There they are. First of all, we have the incredible, back again in the salon, we have the incredible Dr. Sarah-Naomi James, who is a postdoctoral researcher at University College London, funded by Alzheimer's Research UK. And her work links life course influences with brain and health and neurodegeneration. And she's a passionate public engagement advocate. And once even, if you want to go back and check a previous salon session, she even turned her research into a mini golf course. So a poster should be no problems at all. Yes, really a mini golf course. Alongside Sarah, we have the brilliant Dr. Sofia. We have to correct this because the description was wrong, because since advertising this event and actually running this event, Sofia has finished her PhD. So congratulations, Sofia, who is a PhD student at the Alzheimer's Centrum Groningen. Oh, goodness, I should have checked my pronunciation before we did this. Do that for me, Sofia. How do you pronounce that? Alzheimer?
Well, so in Dutch would be Groningen.
Groningen.
Yeah, in the Netherlands.
Studying risk factors, I assume still studying risk factors for the cerebral vascular system in aging, and is also passionate about mental health, trauma, and accessible science communications. And as all of you know, each of our speakers will present for 10 minutes on the topic, and then we'll have a chat. And also as well, we'll hopefully take some questions from you. And that can be anything from very practical questions about how to design the poster, about presentation, printing, about how to engage people. Do start asking your questions, which we've got the Q&A enabled. But that's enough from me for now. Sofia has very kindly agreed to go first, and we've tested screen sharing. It worked. So if you'd like to share your screen, Sofia, I will hand over to you.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. Can you see my screen all right?
I can, thank you.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, nice meeting you all, and thank you for being here today. And so as Adam has already introduced, I'm Sofia Marcolini, now a postdoctoral researcher in the Netherlands. And as many of you as well, probably, I'm also not a designer, but I've been had to look like a designer or work as a designer while preparing many of the posters throughout these PhDs and master's years. So, well, thank you very much also for to the Dementia Researcher Network for hosting this. They also gave me a template of slides that looked a bit like the logo, which is beautiful, but I decided not to use it, also as maybe at the end of my presentation, you will understand why. And I think, well, I rather chose this kind of very colorful, and for some of you maybe might not like the kind of design I've chosen, but anyway, it's just to make a statement also for the message that I want to convey today. So in 3 words, or 3 kind of topics that I'm interested into, so that would be vasculature, psychological trauma, and neuropsychology, neuroimaging. That's a bit what I do in the field of dementia. And going still with the number 3, which is my lucky number, I guess. I was born on the 3rd of January. Today I will present, 3 main topics that I hope you will kind of bring home with you. So one I titled 30 seconds. not like the game 30 seconds, but still 30 seconds. One is called you and one is called refreshing. So going with the 30 seconds one. So remember that, most people will look at your poster for less than 30 seconds. So while preparing your poster, I really always keep this in mind and try also to think or ask yourself, what will they remember if they had to glance at my poster for only 30 seconds? And to help you kind of reason around this 30 seconds statement, I've put some keywords and, well, general ideas. So imagine you go to a conference. Conferences are, at the basis of conferences is information overload. Even if we think of AIC, I mean, it's over 7,000 participants, 1 week of presentations, posters, networking. There is definitely, information overload is probably, underestimation of what it actually is. So it is really important to work on, maybe if we go back to cognitive neuroscience, on visual perception and memory. So how can we make sure that these 30 seconds are grasping people's visual perception and then in some ways try to stick into their memory. So these keywords I put here, I think would help you to really embrace this 30 seconds idea. So think about clarity, think about white space, think about hierarchy, and think about focus. And I like this word of intentional minimalism. So minimalism is, easy to think about, but intentional really means that you have a clear idea of what's the focus of your poster, and you try to put this intentional minimalism in a really clear way. And I think within this intentional minimalism, we can really kind of succeed in this 30 seconds idea of making the poster. The second topic that I wanted to talk about is you. So I think that before you even say a word, your poster in some way has introduced you. And what does this really mean? I mean, for each of you, this might mean something else, which is also being you. But I think in general, and this is a bit, I'm exaggerating here, but we could think about the fact that your poster might reflect your values, your voice, your vibe that you want to show out there in that moment, in that conference. So maybe you want to show confidence, you want to show humility, you want to show curiosity. But I think what's important is that you really own your space, that you really put you out there in the way you want, but in a sense that your poster is not just the extension of your data, but also the extension of your voice. And I think this is really important, considering that, posters might set the basis for future collaborations, and you want to collaborate with people that, obviously scientifically do what you like and might be experts in the field, but then also kind of vibe with you, right? If we want to talk it in, speak it in that way. So that, just show yourself there. And the third topic is refreshing. So I think here, most people that prepare posters are early career researchers. Maybe it's their first poster, first conference. And often, I've done it that way as well. You look back at posters that had been created by previous people in the department, take their format and think, well, if they have done it that way, probably that's the way it's done. They're older than me, they're wiser, then I'm just gonna do the same, basically. But often, with years, I kind of learned that it would have been okay to just throw away all those norms, throw away all those unwritten rules, and just show, let's say, the way I wanted my poster to look like. So I think it's really important to, leave outside that imposter syndrome and this fear of judgment, and allow yourself to be creative, imperfect, and just make your poster look refreshing. And here I have two posters that actually, so one is mine and one is of a colleague of mine, that we showed that it was like a networking event at our graduate school, and we won the posters award. And I think here there are many things wrong, but still what I wanted to convey here is okay, on the one on the left, you see that well, I work with arteries, so I try to make the title look, with this circular shape, look a bit like an artery, and try to, well, use a different kind of format for the way I like the results I wanted to present. And the poster on the right, I mean, you see the title is, I think, really cool, very catchy. The images on top are, yeah, very catchy as well. So in this way, I mean, you know, to be 30 seconds attractive, be you, and be refreshing. Then I wanted to, well, this is just something that I've watched once, and I've never prepared a poster ever like the same way ever again. So I really recommend all of you to look to watch this video. And why am I putting it out here is because, I mean, you're gonna laugh a lot because it's a really funny video, but also so many things are true in there. Basically, what they well, their main message is, you know, we're all being taught to present posters the way on the left, right, with this kind of standard format. But what they propose is like, let's try to move in this way with the poster on the right, which, I mean, if we zoom in, they say, put the main findings in plain English in the middle, a QR code with like further information on the poster if people really want to go through it, and then on the sides just put some general information. And this, I think, really might, you know, fulfill our 30 seconds topic that I've started with. So once I've tried it, it was a conference on trauma in Boston. And I think I failed somehow because I really was urged to still put a lot of information out there. But at least I tried, and the process was not easy. But so the idea was really put this main message in the middle and then try to, you know, scatter things around in the sides. You know, this is just, I really would like to convey the idea that we can be creative and that this could be another way of making a poster as well. Yeah, so my main message is watch this video, please. Remember this 30 seconds rule, remember to be you, and remember to be refreshing. And in this way, you don't really need to be a designer, but I just wish all of you to really enjoy the process of creating your poster, because that's really a nice thing to do and a nice way to really collaborate and meet new people. Thank you very much.
Sorry, you caught me out. I had too many screens open. I couldn't find. I'd lost it. I couldn't find where I was. I was trying to do, which I'm about to do now, which is the YouTube talk you mentioned. This is the talk. Is to get the link from your QR code so I can put it in the chat, which I've done.
Yeah, perfect. Otherwise, I could.
Thank you very much, Sophia. That was really good, and I think that's going to really complement Sarah's talk very well. Who's going to talk about? I think, are you more focused on presentation? I think
exactly. Yeah, kind of with some examples and things like that. So I didn't check.
Over to you, Sarah.
If my screen was working, so I will try. Give me a second, sorry.
While Sarah's doing that, shall I give you some fun facts? Fun facts to fill the radio silence. So here are some fun facts for you. Did you know that over 60% of researchers present a poster before they give their first oral presentation? And I think presenting a poster is a great way to kind of ease yourself into particularly some of the larger conferences. Although, trickily, I would imagine that particularly if you're at the earlier stages, to persuade your boss or your PI to even allow you to go to certain conferences, it might be on the condition that you are presenting. And so I think in these days where some institutions are tightening their belts a little bit. It might be that you've got to be giving an oral, so ticking that box to say verbal and oral and poster as options are always a good way. But yeah, 60% of the first and eye tracking studies show that attendees decide whether to stop at a poster within 6 to 8 seconds. So there you go, fun facts for you. Sorry, Sarah, your slides are working now. I'll shut up and let you get on with it.
I like that fun fact. Thank you. So I just wanted to kind of give some context to what we're talking about. So, I mean, you know, doing the poster itself is obviously the biggest deal, but actually, what does it look like when you go to these conferences? So, sometimes, so these most of these images are taken from the Alzheimer's Association International Conference, which is, you know, one of the largest conferences related to our field, where they have got loads, hundreds and hundreds of posters, and they're all put into themes. And then some other poster sessions, especially more of the smaller conferences, might not necessarily be done by themes and have smaller boards. So I just wanted to kind of show you what some of this looks like, and then also with some tips. So one of the first tips is actually to know your specification, because some of these conferences are really specific about it has to be landscape and it has to be these dimensions. So particularly in this conference, they are really strict about the size and the landscape and stuff. So, you know, before you even start designing, it's to know your audience and the specification to begin with. And this is an example of one of the students who won the kind of best presentation award. And again, it's using like block colors, quite simple design to really get your point across. And I'm going to come back to this as well. Like, so all of these screenshots I've taken from social media, and that's a really good way to collaborate and also to get more visibility for your poster. So it's quite common to get a poster, get a photo with yourself in front of your poster and put it on social media, usually saying what the number is so that people can kind of follow you and tag relevant people. So you could do this, you know, the morning of, or even in advance, to tell people where your poster will be. So some delivery tips. So the first thing, like I said, so know the specification, but also know your audience. And this, again, is important to think about which conference it is. So in something like Alzheimer's Association, everybody's going to know the basics around dementia, Alzheimer's disease, etc. So there's no point really emphasizing the importance of those, because hopefully everybody will know it. But if you go to another conference like an aging conference or geroscience one, then perhaps you do want to add a little bit of context about dementia. So it's really about knowing if your audience is specialist or generalist and kind of tailor it to that. And also to add your event on social media. So Sophia's already gone through some really useful design tips, but one that I always kind of ask students to ask around is whether their lab has any templates or their institution. So some institutions like UCL like you to use a certain format, and that sometimes is helpful so you don't have a blank page, that you can you know, start using their templates or examples within your own lab, what other people have done. Generally, people should be willing to share, and I think that's a really good place to start. And I do think the most important thing is the title, because that draws people in, and definitely visuals over blocks of text is the preference. And then in terms of practicing, so again, Sophia kind of already covered this, but we say to prepare like an elevator pitch, so like a 1-minute pitch. If somebody said to you, what is your poster about? You can describe it in 1 minute, but then of course you can have a more detailed version if people are more interested and want more detail. And so I do have an example of one of these elevator pitches that I'll show at the end, which it will be this one here.
Sorry, Sarah, to interrupt, but the slides are not being shown. So we're still seeing the first slide. And
oh no, I was giving you lots of different slides.
We're seeing the kind of presenter view.
Okay. All right, let me try again. Sorry. No, please do. Thank you. You're seeing the preventer view, so you didn't even see the nice slides that worked. Okay. sorry, is it amateur?
I'll give you another fun fact while we fire our technical gremlins. Conference, most viewers only read apparently about 20% of the text on a poster. Visual clarity is the most critical, and conference posters are very rarely cited, but many conferences do still give you a what do you call them, a DOI number. So the AIC certainly does. All the posters are listed in Alzheimer and Dementia, and you'll get a DOI that you can add to your ORCID ID, for example, afterwards. So do make sure you follow up and look for that after. Okay, I think you're good now, Sarah. We can see the first one where yes, there we go. Okay. You're good.
So this was the one that won the best presentation. So this was where I was saying like about the block colours and a bit of a template overview. And then I was talking about these delivery tips, which hopefully you kind of got about what to do before the design and the practice. Okay, so there wasn't too many slides to skip over. So what I wanted to talk about now is actually how to engage people, because, you know, you don't want to do all of this work and go to these conferences, which, you know, will be really stimulating for you, and then kind of shy away from engaging. So these are just like a few tips that I've kind of developed over the years to ask people to try and draw them in. So things like, you know, this is my poster, would you like to hear more? Are you interested? What's your area? And are you presenting here? So these kind of things are very, like, you know, low level. People can say no and move on, and you hopefully won't get offended, but it's also a really nice way to pull people into your presentation. And then when you're kind of giving either your elevator pitch or your longer description, there are these things that you can do along the way to kind of ask, you know, does this make sense? Would you like more detail? Do you want me to move on? And just kind of make it conversational, even though you've probably prepared, you know, something that you can just reel off. So sometimes the presentations will be one-on-one, where you bring one person in and you kind of take them through it. And sometimes it can be a group as well, like a group discussion where people can kind of play off each other, and you can ask different people what they're interested in and try and pull that together. So it is very normal for you just to kind of give your answer about what your presentation is, but actually if you can make it interactive, especially when there's multiple people, that's a really good way to engage people. And something that my students often are apprehensive about is the questions. So as well as practicing this in your lab or your peers or whatever, I think there are some good tips that we can learn, which is about answering honestly. So I've come up with a couple of different ways to say, I don't know. And it's better to say I don't know rather than to blag. So something like, you know, oh, that's really interesting. I haven't looked into that in detail yet, but I will. Thank you. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I'll follow up with you. Thank you for that suggestion. That kind of thing will hopefully put you, if you have a couple of those sentences up your sleeve, that you will feel more confident about if you don't know the answers. And if you do know the answers, then just answer honestly and to your knowledge. And another good tip is to redirect to what you do know. So, you know, I didn't quite look at that, but actually here's something that we did do. That's a really good way to kind of go more into your comfort zone. I haven't tested that, but based on our data, I think I would expect this, and that can also generate quite an interesting conversation. And if you've got somebody who's really interested and it seems like your interests align, you can ask them. It's very common to say, you know, can we exchange email addresses or social media, LinkedIn, etc. I'd really like to look that up and get back to you. And so you can use your post as an invitation for follow-up, whether that's a collaboration or just sharing a paper or just exchanging emails. And so what I was saying earlier about putting up on social media, this is Will, he's in my group, and he put it on social media of that morning to say, you know, this is my poster, come and see. And some people who are at the conference then go and see it. But even if they're not, then people are engaging and asking questions about this work. So it's a really good way to get maximum engagement. And you can see from this poster here, this is like a template that UCL asks people to have, where they have that bold bit at the top with a big title, and you can obviously design the middle bit how you like, but they like to have the kind of block colours at the top and the bottom, and it will stand out with other posters at the same conference. And just some more examples here. And the reality is sometimes that in these poster presentations, people are just chatting, people might be by themselves, people are just having a little look around with their coffee. So it's not all engagement all the time. And I think it's okay if that's the case for you, that, you know, you get to this conference and nobody's really kind of coming up to your poster. Like, that is also a reality as well. And in that case, the best thing to do is talk to other people who are presenting. So your neighbour who's got a poster, why don't you just exchange with them and say, oh, you know, tell me about your poster. And just let people glance through if that's what they want to do, but also that you're ready by your poster, so that they know that if somebody does want to engage with you, that you're ready to answer their questions.
Thank you for that. So
I do 1 minute elevator pitch as well, where I need to reshare my screen if it works. Okay. Let me see. So this is an example of that 1 minute elevator pitch I was telling you about. If you can hear it. If you can't hear it, let me know.
Hi everyone, my name's Danielle. I'm a GP and also a PhD student at UCL. My research is funded by the Alzheimer Society. This is some of the research I'm presenting here at the conference, and it's exploring the risk of developing dementia in people aged over 50 who have anxiety. And this is using electronic health records, which essentially is kind of information that GPs type in during GP consultations. And what we found was that the risk of developing dementia was greater in people with anxiety compared to those without. And future research should therefore kind of look into if anxiety could be a possible risk factor for developing dementia.
Okay, and the other thing I just want to add before we finish, which I should have said at the beginning, is to always introduce yourself. So obviously, you know, we want to hear about your work, but start off by saying who you are, where you're from, if, you know, you have like a relevant background that's, you know, that you want to share as well. So that is actually a very important bit that is part of it. It's about making you more human and the context of your work.
thank you, Sarah. I'm interested from both of you, because increasingly, I think earlier careers researchers that I've seen of at what point do you decide to even submit that you're going to. Well, first of all, we should warn you that if you want to present at a conference, you need to keep an eye on that conference, because the deadlines, things like the AIC deadlines, if you wanted to present in July, were all the way back in kind of January. And then they took a long time. So if you know you're going to, how do you approach if you know you're going to have something to present by the conference, but you're not quite ready at the point you have to do your abstract? What advice would you give people on that? I know it's slightly off topic. I know what I would say. I'd say do it anyway, because what you put in your abstract and what you actually present on your poster quite often will differ a little bit. Your abstract really just has to talk enough to the topic, even if you can just say this is what we're presenting. Even if you haven't got all the detail at that stage, I wouldn't let that deter you from putting in, because they'll read it. I think, have either of you ever had an abstract actually rejected for a poster?
Yeah, but only this year. It's my first year and I've been doing this for 10 years. It was horrible. But no, so I would completely agree. And I think it's a really good target to work towards. You know, in academia, we don't have many like deadlines, and so things like work can just like carry on. But actually having an abstract deadline is something that's really helpful and concrete for you to work towards with your supervisors as well often. And you can present preliminary results. That's absolutely fine. In fact, that's good to kind of then say, you know, it's a bit of a teaser for what you then will present in the poster. So yeah, I think it's always good to have like sit down every year and try and plan out what conferences you would like to go to, and then work out them backwards about when the abstract deadlines are, and ask supervisors, people in your group, just generally what kind of conferences you would like to go to, and then just submit that abstract.
I think I remember getting the guidance from, I've reviewed for AIC before, and the guidance really is, unless the poster is absolutely off topic, that, you know, usually they would go through, unless that isn't the appropriate venue, or they've ticked the wrong topic for something that's going in, or it's somebody selling snake oil and there's no actual research behind it. It's just before. So don't let that be a deterrent for putting in. And then at the point, obviously, I mean, don't turn up with a poster that's not even anything relevant to the abstract you put in. But people do, don't you? I mean, you'll read the abstract book in advance or read online and then decide which posters you're going to go to. And then that's where you see people wandering around the poster halls with their book, is trying to find the poster that they're going to look for. Have either of you had a poster lead to something, go on to become a collaboration, or built a relationship from talking to somebody at a poster?
Yeah, I was thinking, like, also tagging to the previous question you asked, that sometimes, I mean, because there's so much time in between, sometimes maybe you're more upset for the fact that, well, if you had the results you're actually going to present, that would have led to maybe more than just a poster, but like at the time of submission, you didn't have enough to make it to that stage, let's say. But always keep in mind that, especially for AIC, then the abstracts will be published. So it has to be, I think, of a certain degree of quality, especially because you're putting yourself out there as well. But it's for sure worth it, you know, going for it, because
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then regarding what it led to, actually, for me, yes, especially, but it's something related to clinical work. So someone came up to my poster, and this person was someone from my country that was looking for, also a clinician that could also give lectures, in Italy in this case. So for me, like, it wasn't specific to the topic of the poster, but it basically led me to open up a job opportunity through this poster moment when I basically met this person. So it's really nice to be open to any kind of conversation. And
yeah, similarly, I've got a bit of like a tangent there as well. So there was one conference I went to, and it was a much smaller conference, and the place where we had been designated the posters was like at the end of the line, and nobody kind of came over. But actually talking to people around, other people doing their presentations, poster presentations, actually became like a bit of a peer support. And then we would keep like seeing each other at conferences and different conferences. So that kind of turned into quite a nice friendship then. So it wasn't necessarily a direct collaboration, but a way to network and kind of bond with other people in that scenario as well.
So do take the opportunity if you can. I think, you know, obviously, even if obviously don't go and present something that's no good, because as Sophia rightly points out, this is on the record. But I think don't be deterred if you haven't got all the data at the abstract stage and then you're having to present a year later. Do put something in and then add the detail in at the point where you present your poster. Do you change your posters depending on the audience? I guess you're both kind of more on the fundamental science or clinical side of things, so probably less in the qualitative and care space. But some of our audience will be, where there might be members of the public even there. Do you adapt your posters depending on that?
Yeah, 100%. I think the audience has to be the starting point. Well, actually, the template and like the requirements have to be the starting point. and then think about your audience. That's a really important thing.
Yeah, exactly. And also, but I can imagine it's quite hard, especially if it's your first time to that conference, because now for AICS, if you've been a couple of times, you know what kind of how the template, like how the posters look like and what the audience is. But sometimes it's really hard to really understand. I don't know, for Alzheimer's Europe, the conference, you also have, general public users, etc. So there, I realized that only after I've been to the conference and afterward for the first time, and afterward I was like, oh, well, I wished I had kind of changed my poster or adapted my poster in order for me, to make it more accessible, let's say. And that's why I liked in the link that I shared, the idea that in the middle, you really share just a main finding in plain English, so that, well, you kind of, even if a person is just joining from the general public, is able to grasp something, and then you can always add details later for more the scientific community.
Right, that brings us back to thinking about QR codes and handouts and business cards and printouts or whatever it is you want to give away. I suppose there is the opportunity to have a, I suppose the easiest thing to do would be to print some A4 copies of your poster and just put them in there, assuming you're happy for people to take those away. But you could also make a little simplified version, kind of a little handout that's the simple version compared to the big one. But that also gets me to thinking, I think that's something I've been caught out by a couple of conferences recently is, and you touched on this, Sarah, is checking the rules. Because how many times have you turned up to a conference and discovered that the boards are landscape and your poster is portrait? Or I've discovered this at the last minute, that I've made my poster because the digital submission would be earlier. You kind of had to submit your electronic version of the poster 6 weeks before and then turn up with your poster. And then not until the last minute realize that the electronic poster was in portrait, but the one I had to take to the conference was in landscape, and I hadn't made, I'd made it, just made the digital version. So do check the rules, right? I don't. Make sure you look, what are the sizes? Is it landscape or is it portrait? Is there a difference between the digital version for the online platform and the in-person platform? Is there a variance between the two? And the online ones quite often nowadays also ask you to record a kind of 3-minute video of yourself presenting that. Have either of you come across those problems? Sarah's nodding.
Yeah, definitely. It's very common, especially like you said, as more conferences are expanding the way that they're doing it. So, like it's really frustrating. I mean, it's not the end of the world. You can still present a landscape poster on, so if you get to the conference and that happens, it's okay. It's happened to everyone, but yeah, definitely best in terms of preparation and making you feel prepared. It's good to do that.
I'd be interested. I'm going to ask you this question, but I'm also going to ask the audience. Jack's doing a brilliant job of sharing his top tips in the chat there. What's your biggest bugbear when you go to look at a poster and you think, oh, I don't like that? I have one particular that bothers me, but what are yours, Sophia?
I would say, like, starting from the format, if I see that everyone is landscape and then there is one portrait, I mean, I know it's simple, but to me it's kind of annoying, and I think that's the first thing, the most important thing you need
to pay attention.
I would feel bad for that person. I would go especially to that poster or draw attention to it.
Yeah, I would feel bad, but on the other side, I would think, like, this is really the basics. You just need to check if it has to be portrait, or maybe one person has brought the same poster, from because sometimes you use the same poster maybe in 2 conferences, and then in one conference is portrait and the other one is landscape. So maybe in that case, that could be a reason why.
You raise a point there, though, about checking the rules on these things, because most conferences ask you to accept some terms and conditions that say this is unique, this hasn't been presented somewhere before. Even if you put a different take on it, do check that. I don't know of anybody that's been pulled up, but certainly I've gone to 2 conferences close together and thought, this is the same poster.
Yeah.
It's
Maybe it's just
supposed to
the explanation I give myself of why someone is not getting that right. But anyway, that's I think, yeah, and especially like if when it's too much text, that's just the basics. I just and there is nothing bold, nothing I can focus on. I would say that's just, even if the title is nice.
Exactly, it's not supposed to be a journal article, is it? You're not trying to condense an entire journal article in there. You're supposed to be kind of, it's a short way of presenting, getting that interest. Sarah, what's yours?
I think for me it's like not a very clear title, because that is basically what I look at. The title, if I go straight to the title and then I just either go there or glance over it and move on to the next. So if it's not clear, I'm not stopping.
Can I tell you what mine is? Mine is university or funder logos. So whenever, like, it, the number of times I think I've seen posters where it's literally just copied and pasted from the top of somebody's website, and it's a really poor quality logo. It's in a white box. It's not the right colors. It kind of bothers me, this shoddy, unorganized mismatch of logos just thrown on at the bottom of it as an afterthought. I know it's just a design thing, but whether it's my OCD or, you know, that bothers me, that then they should be lined up. And if it's a purple background, don't just put a white box in there. Go to Canva. I mean, I do this now. I know we all build our... Do you build your posters in PowerPoint?
Mostly, yeah.
Most of the university templates they'll give you for your poster are PowerPoint templates. But I'll take that PowerPoint template, I'll import it into Canva, and then when you copy like a university logo, you can say remove the... I'm going to do this. I'm going to talk you through how to do this while we're doing this now. Shall I show you how you can do this? Here we go. So I'm going to share my screen.
Live demo.
Is just a live demo. Here we are. We're in Canva, and we've got a logo here. Now, your temptation would be to just paste that logo in, but say the footer of your poster is blue, for example. So one thing you can do is go to background remover to a start and remove the background from that logo. There we go. So now that still looks rubbish, doesn't it? But then we go to edit and go to duotone, click on one of these and then make that white and make this white, and then just okay that, and there we go. We've got a nice tidy looking logo that isn't just a white box shoved on top of your blue background. Use Canva just to please tidy up your logos. And same goes for slides. Oh, and make sure you're using whatever is the latest version. Charities particularly, I know in the UK, Alzheimer's Society and Alzheimer's Research UK change their logos seemingly every couple of years. And then you'll turn up and the old logo's on the bottom because you're using a poster you made 2 years ago as your starting point. So you just leave the logo the same. And I've spoken to people from these funders who are always, they won't say anything, but it bothers them that you're not using their latest brand, if you like. How important do you think it is to acknowledge funders and other people on posters? Do you both do that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it is really important. It's not, you're presenting on behalf of those people. It's not just your work. And actually, I think sometimes it gives more validity, like credibility. If you just had a poster and you just had your name on it, it would be like you would ask more questions about, like, really, you did this work just by yourself? So yeah, show your co-authors, show your funders, show your institute.
Funders, particularly at the moment as well, are pitching up to these conferences. So there's always a chance that you might find, you know, the SciComms person from the charity that funds you turning up to your poster to say hi and take a picture of you there, because they're kind of trying to demonstrate the impact of their funding. And so be prepared that somebody like your funder might turn up, want to take a picture of you, see their logo on your thing, and be ready to acknowledge the funders.
I would go one step further and say preemptively contact them, tell them you're going to be there.
No, absolutely. Often, that's a really good point.
Especially if they, I mean, I know for Alzheimer Nederland, they also sometimes sponsor your conference visits, and then it's kind of obligatory, like you're obliged, and obviously to put their logo on the poster. So I think that's important. And then they help you out also with kind of advertising your presentation, etc.
Yeah, and to maximize, like you saw in some of the examples on my slides, you know, the funders did lots of those things actually. So they maximize your poster visibility. It's not just people, you know, that you speak to in person, but it's also connecting it with people who aren't at the conference and wider.
Do you have any visual kind of, you, Sophia, particularly, I know you well, and both of you touched on the design elements of this, but where do you sit on graphics? We know the stat that said heavier on stats and graphics and tables and charts and things is more so than the text side of things. But do you have any tips for doing that? Does that help with your layout? Are you both hot on that? Are you quite good at extracting those things from the software you use?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the data you're presenting, because some data just have beautiful graphs anyway. So then like that makes it all, let's say, and just having that big graph in the middle will, especially like when you're imaging research, if you've got some of these nice figures, that's already helping a lot. But I would really say once I've even tried to put my methods instead of like just in a text, but just with a lot of graphics through Canvas, so that, you know, you don't write participants, but you just put a little icon, and, you know, try to not be exaggerating with the kind of designs you're using. So try to really be with this intentional minimalism I was talking about before. But I would say the more you put graphics out there, the better it is for clarity and just, yeah, I'm trying to experiment a lot, and I think it's fun as long as you, yeah, try to make sure it's not too much and it's still scientific enough to, you know.
Yeah. Funders are, journals are starting to like graphical abstracts.
Yeah.
So it's not too dissimilar to that really, where you can kind of visually explain your aims or visually explain, you know, your recruitment or things like that. So it's not even if you do, I say just, but if your results are just look like not that interesting, or, you know, just dots and a regression or something like that, then you can still make it visually interesting by trying to play around with like the other elements of the poster.
Yeah.
I think we've all probably seen, most conferences now will have that one poster where somebody's been incredibly brave and just put one big thing on there. I think possibly, Sophia, you might have been to this. So there was an Alzheimer Europe one, I think, not last year, but the year before, where somebody had just done it. It was around the time when Barbie, the movie, had been out, and they'd kind of done something like if Barbie did science, and it was a big kind of pink with just a picture in the middle and a QR code, and that's all there was. That poster got more attention than any other. That QR code must have been scanned more times than any. But I think it's a brave move, right? I don't know. Are either of you thoughts? What are your thoughts on going bold and brave?
I would say, you know, why not? Like, if we all start doing this, then it's many Barbie posters out there. But like, we're still talking about this Barbie poster, and like, if you in the end through this QR code go to like more scientific content that people might really be interested into, I don't know, I would give it a try once, just making sure that there is some basic message, scientific message out there, right? Like if it's just an image which doesn't make sense, so there must be a title, there must be something. Oh yeah.
Something along these lines, where you kind of go one big takeaway message, but still with some information to the side. I don't know if we can endorse or recommend that you do that. But
I'm more old school, and I think lots of other supervisors would be. I think, like, yeah, Campbell maybe in a specific conference, but if you're paying quite a lot of money to go to these conferences and your supervisors aren't on board, I would say choose your battle and do like, you know, an intermediate, a middle ground really of visually pleasing and simple, but not bare bones.
I was also I wanted to ask a question because that's something that I'm still, yeah, I still don't have a really good method for this, and maybe one of you has an answer. So I was looking into my iPhone, like photos, looking for posters of previous conferences I've been to, and basically just my gallery is full of these pictures I've taken because I thought this is interesting. But then it's like you go to 10 conferences, so now it's my gallery is just, you know, overloaded by these photos of conferences. So there is where I mean that actually the posters that had a QR code that led me to a PDF that I found interesting. I've saved those in a you know, in the places where I save certain types of content, but that was more useful than all these pictures I've had. So I was just wondering, do you have any strategy to, how do you keep track of these things? Do you also have these 100 pictures? Sarah showed some of them even before. I don't know, do you have a method here? I think some of the audience maybe might also find this.
Definitely interested. Certainly, I mean, I think since iPhone, since smartphones have become more sophisticated, being able to look back at the geolocation where a picture was taken to remember those were the pictures I took in Vienna, or those were the pictures I took in Manchester or something, have been very helpful. But I completely agree on the idea of QR codes. If you make that big enough, even if somebody did just snap a poster, theoretically they could zoom in and tap that and still get taken somewhere. Where do you think you should have that QR code to take you to? Because not everybody who's watching is going to have a website. They're not all going to have a YouTube channel. Although, why not? I mean, why not make a little Zoom, just create a Zoom session with you presenting your poster and press record. Make that 3-minute Zoom recording that you make on your computer, create a YouTube account, upload it to YouTube, and make your QR code point to that YouTube video you made. And then it's a permanent record. Or even if you just create a Google Drive or you know, a Microsoft Share Drive where you put a PDF of your poster there so that people can, and just leave it there for a year. Then at least with that, you can delete it in future if you want. 6 months down the line, you could delete that. What do you do with your QR codes? Or just send to your contact details.
That's
I mean, right?
Yeah.
Your Orchid ID.
I've had some like that go to the contact details, but also ones I've tried with this, like linking it to a Google Drive where my PDF was, and then there were like also extra information if someone was interested into. So I think that's also a good idea. And then I would, during the conference, email myself these QR codes that I've, you know, so I think it's also important before you go to a conference that you have a kind of strategy. If I'm gonna walk through every day these poster sessions, what am I gonna bring home, and how am I gonna track record of what I've just seen and what do I find interesting? Because otherwise it just remains a picture on your iPhone gallery.
I do it in an old school way, but I generally do find this in conferences in general. I don't know, Adam, if you've got a session on like how to make the most out of conferences, but this is something I feel quite overwhelmed at. And again, like after being through so many conferences, but it's always really hard to take away like a crystallized message, like take home message. So with the posters, I would usually say take them on your phone, and then that evening or at some point in the day, I would make a presentation, like a PowerPoint presentation essentially, and then have like one take home message of any kind of follow-ups I want to do, or anything that I was like, you know, I could follow up on this in my work. So I try to consolidate day by day in the conference, but it's quite hard to do that. So then at the end of the conference, then I would have, you know, a couple of pages of like what are going to be the real take home messages for me from this conference, which includes the talks and the posters. But there must be another way to kind of crystallize some of this information.
I know. I certainly use Evernote. I kind of I take pictures and then I'll just forward that picture to myself in Evernote, and then it appears, and then that's on all my devices. It's kind of there. I can't accidentally delete it or forget about it. It kind of pops up there, which I know I use a lot. But that's another idea about having a QR code that's nice and big as well, that's not just tiny that you can scan on the day, but could actually then be blown up when somebody takes a picture of your phone and still used from a picture on your smartphone. So don't make your QR codes too tiny. And if you use some of there are some websites which I could find, and I'll see if I can share links to, that allow you to keep a QR code dynamic, so it's not necessarily static. So if, for example, you present your paper that gets published after your poster, you can then divert that QR code to your paper instead of to the copy of the poster, if that's what you prefer. Or you can change it to divert to your QR code. Jack's got a top tip in there. If you're using a QR code to direct viewers to your poster after the conference, I'd recommend making more mobile friendly version. Google Docs allows you to make pageless documents. Good suggestion, Jack. Thank you very much, Jack, for all your suggestions in there. The other top one, I've spoken to a couple of people recently who've made, we always do these things in English, right? Even though, Sophia, English, not, I assume, not your first language, although very close second, clearly. But it's nice. I think it's nice to have the opportunity to present research in your first language or in the first language of the country in which you're presenting in. So not everybody can do that. But the idea that you might create a second version of your poster in another language that is a PDF version that again is a QR code version, I quite like. I've been to a few recently where they've done that, and I liked that.
Yeah, because I've been in November, I was at a conference, more a psychiatric conference in Mexico City, and a big part of the audience was Spanish speaking. And I could notice that some people wanted to approach it because they found the poster interesting, but then they wouldn't because of the language. So I think, I haven't thought about it back then, but I think this would have been a really nice idea to maybe put the title in 2 languages and make sure that through a QR code or in some ways, maybe with a handout, there would be also a translated version, so that you offer the possibility, even if you don't speak yourself that language, to start a conversation or engage. And
if you're watching and you're in Latin America and Portuguese or Spanish is your first language, and they're the things you know, that's the language you're using at work every day, because I'm guessing, Sophia, you're in the Netherlands, so I'm guessing you speak Dutch at work. I don't know though, actually. You're in the one place where everybody might speak English at work.
Yeah, but I do speak Dutch, so then it's quite often, especially in the clinic.
It can be quite intimidating, the idea that you're going to have to then go and present in English because everybody's going to ask you questions in that. I don't know if you've got any tips for trying to overcome those challenges.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I would say, because English is in the Netherlands, everyone speaks English. And I mean, Dutch is also not my first language. So, for me, it would. But
you've got at least three languages.
Yeah, so then I would say, try to become confident with the presentation beforehand, and don't be scared, because most of the time the person is going to approach you is also not going to be a native speaker. So, I mean, worst case, you're both going to struggle. And I think the most important thing is really try to exchange some ideas. You don't have to be this perfect presenter with this perfect accents, perfect everything, let's say, as long as you try your best and prepare beforehand, because that's important with any kind of presentation.
Well, we're over time. But I'm going to round off as ever, as regular salon attendees will know. One thing I do every week is we have an AI algorithm that's been trained specifically using the content from the Dementia Researcher website, not from the internet, but from hundreds and hundreds of podcast transcripts, webinar transcripts, all of our blogs, all of the content just on our website. So we know that the information source behind this is reliable and not just some spurious made up thing from the internet. And every time I ask it, because we do have lots of content on these topics in our website, which is dementiaresearcher.nihr.ac.uk, and there's an online version in the app, if you're watching this in the community app. And this time I said, give me 10 top tips on developing a great conference poster. And we're going to test now. I'm going to share these top 10 tips to finish off with and see if Sophia and Sarah have picked up on them in their talk. So number one, start with your key messages. What's the one thing you want people to remember? I think you both mentioned that. Number two, think visually, not just verbally. Use diagrams, icons, and layout to tell a story. Layout is important. You know, do we read left to right? Do we read top to bottom? Again, layout is important. Number three, keep text minimal and digestible. Bullet points and bold headings go a long way. I think you both mentioned that. Number four, use hierarchy. Guide the reader from title to methods to takeaway. So go through in the similar way like you would a paper. Number five, test legibility. Can it be read from 1.5 meters away? If not, it's too small. Number six, add a QR code, link the paper to a website or video for follow-up. We've all said that. Number seven, practice a 60-second summary. Your poster pitch should be short and confident. Well done, you both mentioned that as well. Number eight, make eye contact, not just slides. You're part of the poster too, so don't look at your feet while you're talking to people. Do stand and next to your poster proudly and look approachable, you know. Be there at make sure you've checked the time that you're supposed to be at your poster. Be there. If you know it's over lunch, make sure you've taken your lunch with you and you've got a drink and that you can stand there for the time that you're supposed to be. Some conferences, your poster will be up the whole week. And then others like the AIC, they'll designate you a day and you'll have to be there at lunchtime and the afternoon. And so check out those timings. Number 9, have business cards or a LinkedIn or a contact sheet ready to share your contact details. And number 10, check the rules on size, orientation, digital versus actual. And something we didn't talk about today, which is whether you print your paper poster. Do you have it shiny? Do you have it matte? Do you have a cloth one? Cloth posters, I find them to be a massive pain. They're creased, they never stick up properly, they fold around, but I know other people love them. I'm not a big fan. I don't know, where do you vote? Are you in favor of cloth posters, Sarah, or are you old school?
I like the cloth, so you don't have to faff with the poster tubes.
What about you, Sophia?
Yeah, I've tried it only once and it was perfect to have it in my suitcase and I could just keep it after the conference as well, because otherwise often you just see these people throwing the posters away. Well, I think with it's less visually appealing perhaps, but might be handy.
Everybody favors cloth posters. And remember that if you don't go get your poster at the end of the day, they will just take them down and go to the poster graveyard. So make sure you do collect your poster at the right time. Also, they're a great way when you're on the flight to wherever you're going to realize that person's probably going to the same place I am. So don't be shy. Your poster presentation might even start before you even get to the country where you're going to present. Because when you're standing in the check-in line at the airline and you see 6 other posters with people with poster tubes, say, hey, are we going to the same place? Start presenting early. Thank you very much, Sofia Marcolini and Sarah-Naomi James. You've been incredible, very insightful. As always, you're welcome back anytime. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us this week in the salon. We'll be back next Wednesday. And thank you, Jack, as well, who I feel has presented as much information in the chat there as we have online. Jack, you should come back and join us in the salon as one of our presenters yourself. And in fact, I do have a vacancy to do that right now. We've got a session in July. So if anybody who's still watching or is watching the recording is free in July, I'm just trying to remember what the topic is on. Sorry, I'm going to find it. Here we go. We have a session in July. Date's not set yet, but I need somebody who can join us and talk about developing an abstract. So we've kind of we've put the cart before the horse, so to speak. But in July, there'll be a session on developing an abstract. And if you've got top tips to share on that topic, Sophia, if you'd like to come back and go backwards in time, that would be great. So do let us know if you'd like to present on that topic. And we'll be back in the salon next Wednesday when we're going to be talking about dealing with imposter syndrome with I think we have Rebecca Williams, two of our regular bloggers, Rebecca Williams and Dr. Connor Richardson, who are going to be with us next Wednesday at 8 p.m. next week in the evening in the UK time. So we'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you very much, Sophia and Sarah, and good luck with your posters. And another thing you can do when you've got a poster ready, put it into the chat section in the research chat of Dementia Researcher, and you'll find somebody there that'll have a look and say, yeah, this looks great. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the week. Bye.